Cultivating relationship is a core component of AIPAC's missions. One of the ways that happens is through shared experiences during trips to Israel. Last year, AIEF, the charitable organization affiliated with AIPAC, sponsored a return visit to Israel for leaders of our African American outreach. On that trip, participants dove deep into the extraordinary challenges faced by Israeli security forces.
The reason I got involved with AIPAC was I wanted to better understand the relationship and the historical nature of that relationship between African Americans and my Israeli brothers and sisters.
I think it's important that leaders in the African American community become engaged in the American-Israel relationship. And when I think about the Jewish community and the civil rights movement, I look at how coalition building through our similarities, through our shared struggle, makes us stronger.
It goes a little bit deeper for me just because my family is of Haitian descent. So both my mother and father are Haitian immigrants. And in 2010, when the earthquake in Haiti took place, to learn that Israel as a country was one of the first folks on the ground to help my people helped me look at Israel a little bit differently. I looked at Israel as a global partner. I looked at Israel as being a compassionate country that stepped up when my country of origin was in need.
By being pro-Israel and by engaging in the work of AIPAC, I'm also engaging in the work in our community and doing so with people who are pro-Israel but also pro-African American. That's a huge benefit for me.
What's really important for me to go back and share with my community about what I've learned in my involvement with AIPAC is that it's so much more complicated than what you may read or hear from many different sources.
Getting involved with AIPAC means having conversations with people, reaching out to the communities that I'm in and the spaces that I'm in to share what I've learned, what I've experienced. And because Israel faces a unique threat, to go home and to advocate for further resources that are necessary to keep Israel safe.
Since I've been involved with AIPAC, I've done a number of things. I've attended policy conference each year. I've also gotten involved in the political aspects of it, meeting with members of Congress and prospective members of Congress, even on the political contribution side of things. I'm also a member of the Congressional Club. I'm a member of the National Council.
I've attended several policy conferences, and I've also attended our local events that are taking place in Michigan, and I've been engaging with friends that I have that are in AIPAC and just doing more in the community together, figuring out ways that we can complement one another's goals.
Leadership is not just talking, it's getting engaged in doing. So I try to lead by example. So for me, leadership is not just a proclamation, it is what are you doing and what's the impact that you're creating at the end of the day.
The conversations matter. By us learning and by speaking more about these issues and supporting these issues, communities can learn. And I hope that in my activism, I can encourage those in the communities for which I am a leader to think about how we approach our issues.
As an activist, I see myself continuing to form those relationships in and around AIPAC with friends in the labor movement, LGBTQ, Latino, African American. So I can best describe this group as the epitome of Black excellence. And we're building a movement that's going to have real traction and real impact in the United States, but also in our relationship building with Israel.
Here with us now are two activists who were on that trip. They are passionate about the state of Israel, Damon Brown and Allison Lawrence. Thank you so much for being with us. When I first spoke to you, Damon, it was the first introduction to the terror tunnels, yes. And I was blown away by your reaction. And I'm sure you were blown away when you went there, and you heard the forum on the terror tunnels. What did you think?
I think chilling is probably the best word to describe the experience. Even from the street where we could see just how close the opening to the tunnel was to the neighborhoods, and what a threat that posed to the civilians nearby. Going down into the tunnel, it was wet, it was eerie, the infrastructure that was inside was just incredible. The fact that there were active telephone lines and air conditioning, that this was built really to terrorize, to cause harm to people just by virtue of who they are, really to me exemplified why we were there and why what we did when we come back home is so important.
And so what did you think?
It was truly unbelievable. The closer we walked to that tunnel, it was hate. I did not go all the way down as far as Damon did, but just like he said, it was just unbelievably shocking to me to see the active telephone line, the air condition, and how far it went down. Just unbelievable. The thought that you have to have that much hate in your being to do this through like solid rock. I mean, it was just...
You could see on the sides it was solid rock.
Absolutely.
So it was this very calculated plan for death and destruction.
Yes.
And that took a long time to do. So it's not just a feeling of hate, it's a complete suffusion of hate.
Yes.
So I guess, but how do you bring that back and convey that to other people in a way that it will affect them the same way it affected you and get them involved with Israel?
I think the storytelling, the pictures certainly are adequate that we've taken, but I believe that we are powerful community leaders and we bring value when we share our stories. So the storytelling has been key to getting others involved in this movement.
So what did you do when you came back?
Well, I think part of the reason why those of us who went on the trip were selected is because we've all been active in our communities here in the States. I think when I came back, and again, the purpose of the trip was for us to sort of take a deeper dive into some of the issues, particularly the security issues that Israel faces, after we had the baseline experience of the first going on an initial trip to
the overview.
Correct. And so I think I came back more empowered with information. I felt more confident speaking about some of these issues in more depth. And so having that experience really allows you, and I had some speaking opportunities at some AIPAC events, some other community events where I was able to share my experiences. And when someone's able to connect on a personal level because they know who you are, and you're able to be that firsthand experience for them who did not go on the trip, I think it just further illuminates the seriousness and allows people to internalize and feel what I was able to feel.
What are some of the other aspects of the trip, besides the terror tunnels, which I'm sure was the highlight, but other aspects in this second trip that made an impression on you?
It was truly, to Damon's point, the deeper dive. It wasn't the overview, the intelligence that we received being there, just not that the caliber of speakers was just up yet another notch when you couldn't think you couldn't think AIPAC could do any better. It was just incredible.
And you went to the Alma Institute too.
Yes.
And what was that like? Tell people what that was and what that was like.
Wow.
Yeah, the Alma Institute.
Wow.
Wow.
For me, I think that was probably the highlight of the trip.
Really?
Just because it allowed us to engage. It allowed us to bring all of our knowledge and to receive information and to be placed into a scenario where we had to make real-time decisions just as the Israeli government has to make.
Right, it's the specialty of Alma, right? With certain groups creating a simulation of pretend cabinet. You are the pretend cabinet of Israel. And then there's some kind of situation and you're made to feel like you have to make a decision. So tell me about that. What is that like?
It was, time was of essence. You had intel that was coming in and all the experts at the table, what do you think? And you really had to factor in not just the level of threat that was coming in, how would it impact the community? These are mothers, these are fathers, these are young people going to war that you're putting their lives in jeopardy. So it wasn't just a rash decision. So it was very impactful. I think, Damon said, it was truly a highlight of the trip, if not the highlight of the trip.
And then I know that the simulation that we were given involved the movement of rockets from Syria into Lebanon to be used by Hezbollah, and whether to intercept based on that information and potentially create conflict or to wait and to see if that in fact would happen.
And
then ironically, 2 months after we got back, that very situation manifested in real life. And that was even more chilling, being back at home and seeing the scenario.
It wasn't some crazy scenario that was cooked up. It was real life. So when you go back, you know, it's a question I pose to also young African American students who are heavily involved in outreach. How do you get others? What is the key point to convince others in the African American community there's so many issues that you can deal with, to say we need to care about Israel? I may ask you to dance in a second.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's very loud.
It's getting louder.
Go ahead.
So I think, again, being someone in the community where people value your opinions and your thoughts, and I spoke to it earlier when I was on stage this afternoon. When Israel is safe, we are all so much safer. And for me, that's just, I mean, that's the reality. We live in a very global society, but with technology today, you know, it doesn't take much to cause harm to another country or another city or another state. And so the safety and security of the USA, not just Israel, was very high on my radar once, you know, you did the first trip, certainly, but certainly the second trip was #1 priority.
And I think, Damon, you also said it when I spoke to you earlier. You're a global citizen.
Right.
Just because, you know, you care about Israel doesn't mean you don't care about your community.
And to that point, I think we need to encourage, especially within the African American community, to be global citizens, that we can still focus on our issues and still be compassionate for others around the world. I think there's also a need to let others know that Israel is committed to some of the same issues that we are, that the work that's being done in Africa and in other countries where we have African and people from the diaspora in Haiti, that Israel is coming to their need by providing technology and resources. And so by supporting Israel, we are supporting Africans all over the world.
Okay. Well, AIPAC's very lucky to have you. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for putting up with the noise.